Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I know that it has been a little while since my last upload, but this is the last and final video about Tulum, Mexico. So earlier this year, I spent 1 month living in Tulum, and in this video, I want to share everything about that experience. So if you are working remotely, or if you're a digital nomad, or even if you're looking to retire in Mexico, this video will surely help you decide if going to Tulum for an extended amount of time is worth it. I have lived and worked from online all around the world for the last 5 years. So let this video commence a new series in my expat stints around the world. And while I've got your attention, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button while you're watching, because I will be uploading more videos like this, updating this series from the different places that I'm living. So you can also follow me on Instagram to stay actually current, up to date by the minute. Follow me here. Let's go ahead and get started with our very first episode of the Expat Stint series, starting with our lovely neighbor to the south, Mexico. Mexico is probably the first place American retirees and us digital nomads consider when looking at places overseas with a lower cost of living. So if you are considering visiting Tulum for a longer term stay, then watch this entire video because I will outline all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything about living in Tulum for 1 month. So why move to Mexico? The cost of living is probably the driving impact for why a lot of people move to Mexico. On top of that, the visa requirements for Americans are pretty lax and easy to get. So we can enter Mexico and stay as long as 6 months without having a visa. While living in Mexico is ideal for budget-conscious expats, here's the kicker. Tulum is actually expensive, and here's part of the reason. The allure of Tulum is it has some of the most beautiful beaches in Mexico. The ancient ruins and jungle cenotes are like a picture-perfect postcard. You add in the Maya culture, food, boutique beach hotels wrapped in jungle-looking architecture, you start to get an idea of what being in Tulum has to offer. So with all that said, in the last few years, Tulum has gone through a tourism roller coaster. It has become a mecca for yogis and other people on spiritual journeys. It's become a top place for executive businesses to have their retreats, and it has become the land of influencers. Similar to Bali, in that Tulum is the stage of an Instagram-worthy oasis. Let's get into the cost of living. When I say Tulum is expensive, I mean it's definitely one of the most expensive places to stay in Mexico. There are some aspects of living in Tulum that do make it a bargain relative to what I may consider an expensive lifestyle location in the US. I'll share with you some of my baseline costs and then go into details about how and why it's that price. Here's a breakdown of my monthly costs. Rent and internet cost me $1,600 a month. Food and household items cost $400 a month. Transportation, $200 a month. Entertainment, $350 a month. So the total is about $2,550 a month, give or take. Only because the cost of transportation can actually vary depending on what kind of transportation you're using day in, day out. So I shared a small 2-bedroom with a full kitchen, a living room with a TV, and a very small backyard. My apartment was located in the town of Tulum, which is much, much cheaper compared to staying near the beach. So the total cost for 1 month of rent for this 2-bedroom place was actually $3,200. But of course, split into two, it's $1,600 for me and $1,600 for my roommate. I never stayed anywhere near the beach, but I did hear that if you go for like a 2-3 night stay, it's like almost $1,000. Okay, so for food, I did a combination of things. I did one dinner at an upscale restaurant on the beach, which that dinner alone cost me 1/3 of the total amount I spent on food. I ate twice a week at local authentic places, which are much cheaper than the upscale restaurants at the beach. The meals at the authentic places cost around $5 each. And then I also went grocery shopping. So I grocery shopped once a week, which cost me about $20 to $25, but I went to the local supermarkets and veggie and fruit stands. There are some really upscale organic grocery stores that I know is very popular with tourists, but I actually did not shop at any of those. Okay, here's a word of advice about transportation. The first week I was there, I got into a taxi, and I had no idea that these taxis are actually not metered. I've never come across that in any of my travels. So when you take a taxi in Tulum, you actually have to negotiate the price before the driver drives. Obviously, I didn't know that, and it was an awfully negative experience because after going less than 2 miles just from one side of the town to the other side of the town, the taxi driver tried to charge me $100 for being in the taxi for about 5 to 10 minutes. He said it was a really busy time of day, there was a lot of traffic, but in no way in going 2 miles, obviously, it doesn't cost $100 in that taxi ride. So that was a very negative experience for me within the first week. That was my first and last taxi in Tulum, and then I rented a bike. And I recommend that this be the first thing that you do when you get into Tulum because it's so much easier having a bike. Renting a bike costs about $10 a day. That's a very standard rate, but because I was there for a month, I was able to bargain for, you know, half the price for like 30 days. So the price could change depending on how long you're staying there, how many days you need the bike, and if you can bargain with the bike rental shops. So for entertainment, the reason why I spent $350 on entertainment is because I hired a private tour guide for 2 weekends in a row with this company called Carry Tours. And I have this amazing tour guide, Debbie, who took me all over the Yucatan region to see ancient Maya ruins, small towns, a Maya village, and plenty of cenotes. So a private tour for 1 day cost me $160 and I did 2 tours. But for me, that was absolutely worth it and worth having a guide because she helped me to really immerse myself into the modern Mexican culture, into the Mayan culture, and really dive into the locals and learning more about their lifestyle and their culture. All in all, this budget may seem like it's on the high end, but it is a pretty standard average monthly living cost in Tulum. Depending on your standards and circumstance, you can live as lavishly as you want or as inexpensive as you want, but the basic commodities are similar no matter what economic position you're in. I stayed in Tulum Pueblo, the town side of Tulum, where most people stay if you're on a budget. But in my case, a budget of $1,600 a month is almost the exact same rental price that I would get in San Francisco, so I wasn't really saving any money in terms of rent. My apartment was in an area called La Veleta. It's about a 5-minute bike ride to downtown and about 25-minute bike ride to the beach. It's an up-and-coming neighborhood with a clear disparity between the locals' housing and the hundreds of luxury-style villas and condos that are all being built. It was common to hear drilling noises and construction noises every day. La Veleta is going through rapid development that the surrounding infrastructure can't really keep up. The roads are both dirt roads and broken cement with potholes the size of bathtubs. I'm kind of exaggerating, but like not really exaggerating. The smell of sewage can linger in certain areas. We lost power a few times for a few hours at a time, and our internet was not stable and very slow. This was an obstacle that I had to figure out working there as a digital nomad with Wi-Fi being an essential piece of my work. My apartment had a full kitchen with a stove and pots and pans, and I love to cook. So I cooked a lot, and I cooked a lot of veggies and produce and meat that I got from local stands. One of the biggest perks about living in Tulum town was that my bike was just enough for me to get around anywhere. I loved getting to ride through neighborhoods on my way to the grocery store or exploring pockets of the town for local taco joints and home-style family kitchen restaurants, which are called cocinas económicas. Also, the locals in Tulum town are some of the nicest, warmest people I've ever come across in my travels. I would bike around with my camera and I would snap shots of the neighborhood, and the locals would see me and they would come up and they'd ask me questions about my camera, and then they'd want to pose for a picture. So they're just like really welcoming, fun, easy people to talk to. The interactions I had with the locals was by far the best part of Tulum, and a part of Tulum that I really don't hear about. Another thing I loved best about staying in Tulum town was that the partying was, you could be either mellow or you could be raging. There's plenty of crowded bars and live music to enjoy in the town, but the entire month I was there, I was COVID conscious to the extreme, so I really didn't go to any bars or any clubs along the beach. My partying was sitting in open air restaurants and drinking micheladas and having tacos. Overall, my weekdays were spent working at my computer, and the weekends I left for exploring all over the Yucatan region, going to local cenotes, eating at restaurants, and touring the Yucatan culture. With everything Tulum has to offer for the adventure seekers and the luxurious bohemian chic crowd, it's easy to understand why people visit Tulum. I never felt danger around the town. I never felt in fear of my life. While there are certainly dangerous places in Mexico, just like there's dangerous places everywhere else in the world, Tulum is really a safe city. I always recommend that you behave like you're a guest in someone else's country, which you are. And you should always practice the same vigilance any place, whether you are at home or whether you're in a new country. In Tulum, there are definitely some shady things going on with people who are involved in, getting drugs, and even the taxis. They feel like a syndicate of the mafia, the way that they are run without meters and the way that the price is negotiated. But I've often discussed this question of safety and danger, especially because I travel solo all the time. Like most of my travels, I'm alone. And so I think that when it comes to safety, don't get involved in shady things. Don't walk the streets at night alone if there's no lights on the road. I have a whole video about how I travel solo. If you guys are interested, it's linked right here. Overall, Tulum proved more expensive than I imagined. And it is truly a privilege to be able to stay in Mexico for this long. And I really appreciate Mexico for having so many things to offer expats. So after all this is said and done, would I recommend you go to stay in Tulum, whether it's living in Tulum or staying there for an extended period as a digital nomad, as an expat, or as a retiree? No. I would not recommend living in Tulum. The amount we paid in rent for 1 month of living in Tulum is similar to San Francisco prices, with inconveniences that were not worth the monthly cost. People were just like shooting off fireworks, yelling in the streets, and also leaving their car on for hours rumbling. I don't know why. Since La Valeta is an up-and-coming neighborhood, there are stray dogs everywhere, and the roads are very dusty from all of the construction trucks that are driving by, and it just kicks up so much dust, and it gets in the windows and it gets in the apartment. So to get more into my thoughts about it, I came to Tulum with high expectations. I went to Tulum to get a sense of life there, to mingle with the locals, to get a feeling for the culture and the way of life, and I loved getting to experience Mexican culture. Mexicans have so much to be proud of, and their culture has so much to offer for whatever you desire. From what I had seen from other influencers before going to Tulum, when I was on Instagram searching all of the hashtags, looking at places in Tulum, it seemed like a magical, mystical place full of a vibrancy that tourists dive into. But unfortunately, what I have seen on Instagram is not the real Tulum. I get that people have different preferences of lifestyle, and I get that people go to Tulum to unwind and be on vacation. That's not what bothered me. What bothered me was the hypocritical behavior I saw from crowds of tourists misbehaving. People wearing spiritual looking clothing and then getting into screaming fights and brawls in the streets. I saw a group of tourists at a restaurant treating their servers as if they were inferior because they couldn't communicate, and it seemed as if they were upset because the server couldn't speak English and the customers couldn't speak Spanish. It was just awful to watch, and it was awkward. I saw groups of intoxicated people refusing to sanitize their hands upon entering a place, copping attitudes about wearing masks, just acting like COVID doesn't exist. There is a safe way to travel around and move around and be respectful towards everyone else. So the scene in Tulum is not for me. I think that there's too much unsustainable development and inconsiderate tourists there. I have many friends who love Tulum, and I have friends who go back to Tulum every year. There are really beautiful places, very well-preserved areas that are away from the party scene that you should totally seek on your own with a local tour guide. But if you want a long-term stay to learn more about the culture and more about the lifestyle with a lower cost of living, Tulum is not going to be the place for you. All right, guys, that was a lot of information. I need a glass of water right now from talking so much. So I hope this video is helping you make your decision about whether you're going to stay in Tulum for an extended period of time or just go there to visit the Yucatan region. Let me know if you have any questions about staying in Tulum, and drop all of your comments down below. Thank you for being here, and until next time, take on the world.